Spider-Man. The first Spider-Man game kinda followed the movie, but it took its own spin on things in a lot of ways, which I actually find like a really good idea. You know, because a lot of movie-based games just look for a full one-to-one translation of the actual movie itself, and they try and put it into a game, which doesn't always work. The gameplay may not be great, and the story is mostly what was involved in the movie, but I remember playing this game like all the time. They also got the actors from the movie to do the voice acting for their respective characters, which is just fantastic. And like I say, it does follow the movie, but it does have its own spin on things. It does have some extra characters in there, some extra missions you gotta do that aren't actually tied in with the movie itself. And it also has a cheat code which let you play as the Green Goblin, but not as Norman Osborn, as Harry Osborn. The cheat code let you play additional content. The missions and levels are kinda the same, but you have different gameplay, and of course, a different voice actor for Harry. It's essentially a different game. Developers and publishers of the modern day, take notes. Spider-Man 2. Well, it's basically the same as Spider-Man 1, but instead of just being like a graphical improvement and a movie tie-in, they actually innovated and made web-slinging a fun and unique experience. This time around, Spidey can only web onto things that are nearby, rather than just webbing onto the clouds or whatever he was doing in the first game. This is a game that came out in 2004 and was to be tied in with the Spider-Man 2 movie, but you can tell this game is not half-arsed. Time and care actually went into this game, and it really does show. And of course, the cast from the movie also reprised their role in the game as well. Once again, this is great, and it might seem like a small thing, but it actually goes a long way. Hearing the voices in the movie and seeing the actors, and then hearing their same voices in the game, it really does tie it all together. Oh, and the gameplay? Really, really fun. Absolutely amazing. Especially since you can upgrade Spider-Man now. That is fantastic. The Lion King for the Sega Mega Drive or Genesis. This game is insanely difficult. I think I've only ever beaten the game like once. You're actually not told anything. Well, for the most part anyway. You kind of just have to figure it out for yourself, which back then, that was the done thing. You just had to figure it out. If you didn't, fuck you. Well, unless you had the manual. Actually, you know, now I'm thinking about it, that actually makes sense within the movie, where, you know, Simba is essentially orphaned and then runs out into the wilderness until he's then worthy to take on his Uncle Scar and then become king himself. And in that respect, I think it's a very clever way to tie the game together with the movie, especially in a time where very little narrative was given in these types of games. Cutscenes were sort of a little bit rare. I mean, they were done, but they weren't very common. So now I'm actually really thinking about it. The game is actually a very good translation of the movie, in its own special way, I think. Huh, very nice. But yeah, I've only ever beaten this game like once, but it's still a freaking fantastic game. Very hard though, so if you're going to give it a try, don't expect it to be easy just because it's a kid's game. Last one, well, ones. The Harry Potter games. Now, I'm going to list them all here since they're actually all pretty good. They all follow the movie quite well and actually follow the book a little bit more closely. And of course, they have their own little slight spin on things, just so they can actually make it a different experience and make it an actual game. The early games play a lot like The Legend of Zelda, The Ocarina of Time, but the later games develop into their own style, and I can kind of appreciate that. I don't think I've ever finished any Harry Potter game, but then again, I've barely ever finished any fucking game ever. Perhaps I should go back one day and try and finish them. They're actually really, really good, if a little bit bullshit and tricky in some areas. When it comes to movie-based games, it's generally a recipe for disaster, as is the case when it comes to like 95% of all tie-ins. Ugh. But in some rare cases, you actually get developers who try their best with the given source material, and it really does show. So, those are my favourite movie license games. What are yours?